Failure doesn't teach you. If it did, you would only need to make a mistake once. Your brain decides whether anything was learned at all. You've probably spent years repeating the same mistakes, convinced this time is different, only to end up in the exact same wreckage. Same relationship patterns, same professional red flags, same productivity traps. After every crash, you tell yourself, I learned my lesson. But your behavior doesn't change. This isn't willpower. This isn't effort. This is a structural failure in how your brain processes failure. You think your mind records disaster like a documentary, every warning sign, every painful detail. It doesn't. Your system isn't built to preserve truth. It's built to preserve function. And function requires compression. So the system removes cost, deletes texture, erases the slow parts that hurt. What remains is a version of the story you can live with. This creates a brutal gap. You remember the mistake, but not why it mattered. You remember that it happened, but not what it cost. And without cost, there's no behavioral gravity. So you loop. Not because you're stupid, not because you don't care, because your internal database isn't storing the failure. It's storing a low-resolution survival edit. If you've ever wondered how you can be intelligent and still sabotage yourself in the exact same way for years, you're not failing to learn. Your system is failing to encode. This loop exists because of a structural failure in your internal architecture. Here, we call it the failure encoding glitch. You think you are objective. You're not. Your system prioritizes stability over accuracy. You don't fail to learn because you forgot the disaster. You fail to learn because your brain didn't store the right data. It doesn't archive the friction, the slow stress, the hundreds of warning signs you ignored. Instead, it applies a shortcut psychology calls the peak end rule. Your memory doesn't store the full cost of failure. It stores the emotional peak and how the event ended. And if the ending was survivable, if you apologized, recovered, or justified it, the system labels the entire event not that expensive. And now the path is clear to repeat it. The failure encoding glitch operates through three mechanical errors. First, it compresses the process. Weeks of bad micro-decisions collapse into one low-resolution story. It just didn't work out. When the timeline flattens, you lose the exact moment the system drifted. Second, it breaks affective forecasting. Research shows we are terrible at predicting how our future selves will feel, and because your brain never stored the real emotional cost of the last failure, it predicts doing it again won't be that bad. It forgets the 3 a.m. anxiety. It remembers the 10 a.m. recovery. Third, the system rewrites the event to protect internal stability. It reconstructs memory into something survivable. It wasn't the right time. They were the real problem. It was a special case. You convert systemic failure into narrative exception. And this is why you can be highly intelligent and still repeat the same self-sabotage pattern for years. You're trying to fix a hardware failure using a corrupted software log. You're not processing reality. You're processing a sanitized past, one that was never designed to teach you anything. To break the cycle, you have to manually intervene in how your brain archives failure. You can't rely on natural memory. Natural memory optimizes for survivability, not fidelity. You need to install the full Playback protocol. This patch changes one rule. Stop asking, what went wrong? Start asking, what did the process feel like while it was unfolding? Don't study the explosion. Rewind to the first flicker of tension. Where did the system drift? What did your chest feel like when you saw the first red flag and chose to ignore it? When you map the micro-sensations of the lead-up, you force the system to decompress the event. You move from "it just happened" to a high-resolution collapse map. Now the system can see the early signals it normally deletes. Vague regret becomes recognizable warning patterns. But signal recognition isn't enough, not if the system still believes the failure was cheap. This is where you install the cost reconstruction patch. Your brain hides the real price of failure to protect you from shame. But that protection is exactly what enables repetition. So you run a cold audit. Not just visible damage, total system drain. How many focus hours did you lose? What was the emotional tax? What was the reputation cost? What opportunities closed because of this pattern? When you force the system to process the real price, you override peak-end compression. You tell the hardware, even if the ending was survivable, the process was too expensive to ever run again. You update the internal price tag. Next time, the system triggers high-cost alert, not safe mode replay. Finally, you run the future failure simulation. Most mistakes feel attractive because they offer immediate relief. So don't simulate the mistake, simulate the 72-hour aftermath. Move past the impulse, land in the consequence. 3 days later, feel the exhaustion, the frustration, the "here we go again" loop. You are feeding your brain the emotional data it normally fails to predict. You are preloading future cost into the present moment, so the mistake feels as expensive as it actually is. These patches aren't about discipline, they're about data quality. Your hardware can't avoid cliffs it can't see. You don't repeat mistakes because you're weak. You repeat them because your system archived the wrong lesson. It's time to rewrite the logs. If your system keeps running the same error, drop it in the comments. If this report helped you, subscribe and stay synced. Stay awake. The system is always running.